You're listening to the Mind Over Murder podcast.
My name is Bill Thomas. I'm a writer, consulting producer, and now podcaster. I am now trying to use my experience as the brother of a murder victim to help other victims of violent crime. I'm working on a book on the unsolved Colonial Parkway murders, and I'm the co-administrator of the Colonial Parkway Murders Facebook group, together with Kristin Dilley.
My name is Kristin Dilley. I'm a writer, a researcher, a teacher, and a victims advocate, as well as the social media manager and co-administrator for the Colonial Parkway Murders Facebook page with my partner in crime, Bill Thomas. Welcome to Mind Over Murder. I'm Kristin Dilley.
And I'm Bill Thomas. Well, welcome to this week's episode of Mind Over Murder. We're thrilled to have you back. It's funny, we call them this week's, and we realize, you can listen to them anytime. We release them once a week, so we think of them as this week's episode. But if you want to call it tonight's episode or whatever, feel free. We want to urge you to check out our sponsors. They advertise in the middle of the program. They are what allow us to put together this show for you, in addition to, of course, to your valuable contributions via our Anchor site. Boston Green Health are our new sponsor, and you can get 20% off your order by using the show code MOM20.
Exactly.
I can't imagine where they get these snappy names for their promo codes. They're a terrific new sponsor, and we very much appreciate your supporting them. And then, of course, you'll also hear from our friends at Othram Labs in beautiful The Woodlands, Texas. This is a town with a "the" in front of it, like the Bronx, The Woodlands, outside Houston, who are doing some amazing work through their website, DNAsolved.com, and their state-of-the-art forensics lab, which is solving cases all over the country. They're going to be making some major announcements on some new cases that they have broken with the help of law enforcement. They are just doing amazing stuff, and we were very excited when the Vermont State Police recently announced that they were going to be asking Othram to test evidence in the Brianna Maitland case. This is a case we've been following for a number of years. Brianna went missing in 2004. There is good DNA evidence available in that case, and we hope that Othram can help the Vermont State Police move that case forward. And we're going to be having Bruce Maitland, Brianna's father, and the founder of Private Investigations for the Missing, on as a guest on our show in a couple of weeks. So we hope you'll tune in for that.
And as always, we urge you to please go to your preferred podcast platform and leave us a 5-starred rating or a review, or both, if you're feeling particularly generous with your time and energy.
Be generous.
I know that's asking a lot.
Well, thank you twice.
I'm a teacher. I have to give homework.
There is that. Yes, folks, she's a writer, a researcher, and a teacher.
Virtual teacher. Yeah. So please do take a couple of minutes out of your day, leave us a 5-starred rate or review. It means the world to us, and it helps us grow our podcast audience. So thank you in advance for taking the time to do that. And we are super excited to bring to you an interview with Gemma Hoskins, who you may remember from the hit Netflix series The Keepers, which is still available on Netflix.
It is.
It's been running for quite a while, but it is still there.
Yes.
And we are very, very excited to talk to Gemma. We are huge Gemma fans. We were thrilled that she took the time out to talk to us about the status of the investigations into the murder of Sister Cathy Cesnik and Joyce Malecki, and to talk to us about her new book, Keeping On. Welcome to Mind Over Murder. I'm Kristin Dilley.
That makes me Bill Thomas.
And we are thrilled to be joined by Gemma Hoskins, star of Netflix's hit series, The Keepers. Gemma, thank you so much for joining us on Mind Over Murder.
Thank you. It's good to hear from both of you, Kristin and Bill. It's been a while.
So, Gemma, fill us in on what you've been doing since The Keepers aired.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier today. It's actually been 3.5 years since that series aired. And right now, I feel like we're getting like a whole new group of people interested in it, maybe because I've been more active on social media, and I'm a little bit of a boat rocker. But what has been happening is that in those years, so many other people have come forward with information, either about the abuse or information about the murders that we were looking at, both Sister Cathy and Joyce Malecki. So I take all that anybody shares with me, and I make sure it gets to the right law enforcement people. If it has to do with abuse, of course, in Maryland, we're all mandatory reporters now. And so I have to let them know, if they're going to share that information with me, that they need to share it with the police, or I have to. And everybody's cool with that. Other than that, a lot of really nice, wonderful people like you doing podcasts, interviews. I've done some radio shows, had the opportunity to go to New York and to California, both for, I act like I've done that every day. I don't travel anywhere. So for somebody to say, will you come to New York and talk about this? I'm like, I'm there. So it's been a lot of positive attention, a lot of interest. And I do spend a good part of every day, like hours every day, still working on this, either doing research or reaching out to people that might have information. I've made some really good connections with folks that have talents I don't have, like genealogy, a photographer that knows how to analyze if a picture's been photoshopped. And then in addition, we've done, Shane Waters and I have done over 60 episodes in the last couple of years about the case. So I'm never busy. I mean, I'm never not busy, and I'm never bored. It's always something going on every day.
Tell us the name of the podcast that you co-host with Shane Waters so people can listen to that.
Well, it's had a couple transitions. Right now it's called Foul Play. And listeners can find it on itsfoulplay.com. And all the Sister Cathy episodes are season 2. And it used to be called Out of the Shadows, but then a very odd movie came out called Out of Shadow that was not at all what we were doing, and people got very confused. Podcasts can be confusing. I just tell people it's like an old-time radio show, and that makes more sense. But anyway, so we did a lot of interviews with people that were not ready to talk about their experiences when The Keepers was being filmed, and a lot of people that were not located. So we even interviewed the hunter that found Sister Cathy. We have talked to new folks who were abuse survivors. We have talked to, therapists, experts in how to talk to your children about abuse. So we've kind of really covered the whole gamut of perspectives for anybody that would have seen The Keepers.
Can you give us a case update, both on Sister Cathy and on Joyce Malecki?
I can. I would like to start with the Malecki case. That one to me is kind of my focus right now. The Maleckis have been told nothing about what happened to Joyce. Now, we submitted a FOIA request to the FBI 6 years ago. And every 6 months, we were told that it was awaiting an analyst, and that because it was 4,000 pages that had to be redacted, that it kept getting shoved to the back. Because during the Obama administration, the FBI came under a lot of scrutiny because of the turnaround time on FOIA requests. So a case is a case. So they can get out 10 smaller files in lieu of this one very large one. So that's what our understanding was. We went to our senators. They jumped on board, both Chris Van Hollen and Barbara Mikulski. They tried to help us. They said they were following up. We kept getting the same information. So about a year ago, a colleague got in touch with me who had some connections with FOIA attorneys. And those attorneys went to bat for us. And we were able to get a letter to Christopher Wray, who is the head of the FBI. He is one of the few who's not been fired in this administration. And so suddenly what happened was the status of the case transferred from awaiting an analyst to not available, which I thought was appalling. It makes me think that there's something hiding. Somebody's hiding something. We were also told by the Malecki family, Joyce's family, that the FBI destroyed physical evidence 25 years after Joyce was murdered, and that this was normal. I don't think there's anything normal about that. We were under the impression that there was physical evidence from her fingernails. There are fingerprints somewhere that are deteriorating in a binder, and the Maleckis told me all they were told was that it was somewhere in New York and that an agent would go and take a look at it. Well, to take a look at something is not real comforting. So I really feel like they've been let down and that there's a reason. If FOIA attorneys can't even get a response that's acceptable to a family that's suffering, that there's something wrong. And my feeling is that the two murders are connected. I think if we saw the Malecki file, we would probably find out a lot about Sister Cathy's file. So right now, I am working with the Maleckis. They're considering legal representation. I reached out to Gloria Allred, and most people know she champions women's rights, and this is definitely a woman's story. So I got a no from them. So I'm still actually wrote a letter to the president, and hopefully that got into the White House. I've written to both of our federal senators in Washington and the governor and have not gotten responses from any of them. So I'm not satisfied with the door being closed in our faces and being told it's not available. I don't like to take no for an answer. So that's what's going on with the Malecki case.
Can I stop you for a second?
Absolutely.
The letter from FBI Director Chris Wray, do they say why the information would not be available?
It just says reference FOIA case and the number. The information is not available. And they give a status, like the status that we were getting is just the phrase awaiting analyst, which means they're waiting for somebody to tackle that big old file to do the redaction. I always said, even if they redacted it, Abby and I could probably sit there and figure out everything they crossed out with a Sharpie. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Right.
But no, there was really no explanation, just that it's not available and they're not going to release anything. So I have concerns about that. Now, I have no problem with waiting until there's a transition in Washington and doing this all over again with the new administrator, because I think we might get a different reaction from that gentleman. So not that my bias is showing, right?
Well, it's funny. In the Colonial Parkway murders, which are an FBI case,
right,
their standard response to our inquiries is it's an active case. So I was wondering, did they ever use language like that regarding the Joyce Malecki case?
Way, way, way back at the beginning, when Abby and I started digging into this, we contacted the Maryland FBI representative and I wrote to him, and he said that the Malecki case is considered, a closed cold case, which would indicate to me that, sure, the family can have the files. It's a closed cold case. But apparently that's not the case, because if we're being told that it's normal for evidence to be destroyed after 25 years, well, maybe that happens with a closed cold case. But now for us to be told it's awaiting an analyst and then not available, there's something wrong with that picture. There seems to be a lot of double talk. Now, Joyce was found on an Army base, and her autopsy was done at the Army hospital there. So this is also an FBI case. But at the same time, because this happened right after, she was murdered 4 days after Sister Cathy disappeared.
Right.
And they both knew Joseph Maskell well. So we know that Baltimore County Police Department, who is handling Cathy's case, had a joint task force with the FBI to work together on these two cases. So the officer that's now in charge of Cathy's case, her name is Robin Teal, she shared with me that because of that, she was able to look at the files. She was not able to copy anything or take anything, but she could look at it and felt like she would at least be able to give the family some information. They don't feel like they've really been given any information except to say that the fingerprints are somewhere in a binder. And I don't know a whole lot about fingerprints. I'm taking a class in criminalistics right now, so I'm learning. But apparently those fingerprints are like in little plastic squares, almost like you used to put slides in.
Right.
And that they could deteriorate. Those pictures could deteriorate. So we don't know. And we know that there was material under Joyce's fingernails, and that would have had DNA. So we don't know what happened. I do have a connection. An ex-law enforcement officer said that he had the opportunity to look at Cathy's files when he was doing like a kind of a temporary, doing rounds like in different departments of the police department when he was a new officer, and that he said the cover-up was deep and broad. So there's a lot that's going on that nobody wants us to know about, which brings me to Cathy's case. Did I answer your question?
I think so. One quick question.
Sure.
You referenced if someone has new information and you continue to gain followers and supporters who are interested in these two cases.
Right.
To whom do you refer tips and information? To which agency?
I refer them now to a gentleman who is doing the criminal investigation for the Attorney General. The Attorney General in Maryland is Brian Frosch. And 2 years ago this month, he opened an investigation into clergy abuse. However, so much of what happened at Keough in terms of abuse is connected to Sister Cathy's murder and possibly others. So anybody who has anything, I refer them to him. And I tell you, I send him somebody probably every week. Either somebody who saw something, heard something, recognized somebody in the series. I don't judge what they have to share. I just put them in touch with the right person. Now, if it has to do specifically with Cathy's murder, I also send whatever that information is to the cold case detective in charge at the Baltimore County Police Department. And her name is Robin Teal. I really feel like there's a reticence, to say it politely, on the part of the police department because there were so many police officers involved in this, possibly in the murder and we know in the abuse,
right,
that this could take down many, many families. I believe that the knowledge of what happened goes all the way to the Vatican. And that might be really bold and brash of me to say it, but that's how I feel. So we know that high-ranking politicians were involved, that people covered up what was going on in the church, that clergy covered up for each other. You know, with pedophiles, there's often like a vertical team, so that you would have maybe a thug who's a pedophile who's friends with a priest, and the priest is friends with a bishop who might be a pedophile. I'm just saying might, in theory, and they take care of each other. And then that person might have an attorney who's a pedophile, and that attorney is going to make sure nobody finds out anything. So there is often a vertical chain like that of people taking care of each other. And we know that, I have names and addresses of people who reported abuse to the Archdiocese a long time before the Archdiocese claimed it happened. And we're getting off track here, but between Charles Franz in 1967 and Doe Rowe in 1993, well, that's like 25 years. You mean to tell me that nobody reported in between? No, they reported it. We know who they are. They reported either to the school, to the principal, to the priest, to the Archdiocese. And I think even the secretaries at the Archdiocese were told to not take the calls. So there's something wrong with a number of institutions who don't want to see this solved. That's why we need the grassroots tribe to say that's not okay with us. Does that make sense?
It does. And as a former altar boy who somehow made it through the Boston Diocese without being sexually abused, I know young men who served in the other churches in Lowell, Massachusetts, my hometown,
right,
which unfortunately ended up on the cover of Time magazine when one of the many sexual scandals rocked the Catholic Church. All of this is very, very familiar territory. And I'll just say for the record, I do not doubt that the cover-up in these cases extends all the way to the Vatican, because there's no way all this stuff was going on for 40 years or more without them knowing about it.
As you know, as far back as the Middle Ages.
Oh, sure. I'm only thinking of modern times.
Right. And I think it's so disturbing. And this is why I'm not popular with a lot of people, because I'm a little too out there and I rock a lot of boats. But if that's what it takes, that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm not going to sit down, shut up, or go away.
Well, you're pretty popular here.
I know. And I've asked for a meeting with the Bishop Laurie. I've asked for it publicly on a radio show. I've asked for it on a podcast, and it's not happened. And my idea was like, okay, let's meet on a playground, some, inconspicuous place. You can wear your T-shirt and jeans. I'll bring the sandwiches and cartons of milk or whatever. No, I'm serious. I'm really serious, because I think somebody needs to just sit down and talk to him. And, we call it a come to Jesus meeting. It could be like a come to Gemma meeting. You know what that is. You have a little talk with kids. We're going to have a little come to Miss Dilley meeting, but they don't get it. And now the public information officer, who did the worst podcast with us that we've ever had, because there were dogs barking and phones ringing in the background, which was very insulting to us. Sean Kane, he is resigning. And the reason is because he needs rest. Well, I guess so. I would need rest too if I spent every day making up stories to cover up for the church.
Wow. It would probably be an exhausting job telling one lie after another.
Right. You know what? The director, Ryan White, I told him that, and he said, I think we should apply for the job. And so I went. I could do that job. I would be a really good public information officer for the Archdiocese, because I would tell the truth. And I looked at the job description. I'm serious about this. Now, one problem is that I don't drive. But right now, that doesn't matter. I could do it all from where I live.
Right.
And the other requirement is that you have to be a practicing Catholic in order to be the public information officer, which I thought was a very odd thing to say. So if you don't go to Mass, if you don't receive the sacraments, if you're not in the state of grace, they don't want you. So I really seriously thought about applying, and then just to see how they would get out of giving me an interview. But I didn't get that far. I gave up because I'm not a practicing Catholic, and I'm not going to be. I'm a practicing faith person. I look at the sand and the ocean and the sky every day, and there's my higher power, because nobody can explain that. But anyway, I'm sorry I'm getting off track.
No, you're fine. Was there ever an actual, official on the record response from the Baltimore Archdiocese about the abuse allegations in the keepers, or did they just not respond to it at all?
Well, the very last episode, Ryan White, the director, requested a meeting with them to ask questions, and they said no. He also asked if they would like to participate, and they said no. So they said they would take written questions. And I invite your listeners to look at the last episode, because it tells it will be printed on the screen what his questions were and their responses. So, for example, did the church know about any abuse, before 1990? And the answer was no. And then the next question was the church aware of something else? And the answer was, see answer to number 1. That's the response they got.
Why don't they just put same lie? Because it would be the same thing.
I agree. They don't look too good right now. And now they're sending out this thing for your annual contribution or something. Oh boy, I don't even want to get started with that letter. But anyway, so to answer your question, what happened after that, Chris, is that they did come out and put out in their churches a list of statements about the information in the keepers. And I can probably find that and send it to you. I don't know if you put out print material with your podcast, but it was all very denigrating. And they pretty much called Charles Franz, who's my hero. He was the one that his mom went down there and reported his abuse in 1967, and they said that never happened. And so they've trashed him. They say he's a liar, and it's been so disturbing. And, the filmmakers, we're still all a family. They don't leave us behind. They've moved on to other projects, but they are still very much involved and interested in our welfare and in how everybody's doing. And they're as disturbed as we are at the response. They made the keepers seem like this, the story was sensational enough. I think that filmmakers did a great job at combining the art and technology to make it more of a sculpture, if you want my opinion. It wasn't graphic. It was not sensational. It was real. And they didn't like that. So that's the response we've gotten. I think they want us to just stop talking about it. I would like to know if the Pope has seen it, all 7 episodes. It's kind of surreal that the Pope probably knows who I am, because I've asked for him to call me on his cell phone, and that has not happened yet.
Well, the phone might ring. You never know.
I would love that. I would love to talk to him. He speaks English. I'm so disappointed in him. This is not okay, what's been going on. And it's happening everywhere. And thank God that people are telling. They're telling on religious people. And it's coming out. And I think when it's Marilyn's turn, which I hope is not in the too distant future, I think heads are going to roll. And I think we're going to know who killed Cathy and Joyce.
And we'll be back with more from Gemma Hoskins after these messages.
One of the most frequent questions we're asked here at Mind Over Murder is, how can I help?
Thanks to Othram, a leading forensic DNA testing lab for law enforcement, you can get involved and help solve real cases.
If you have tested at a consumer genetics company, you can contribute your data to DNAsolves.com. The process is easy and confidential. Just 2 simple steps. Your DNA might be the missing piece that helps solve the identity of an unknown person.
Then Mind Over Murder will highlight cases Othram is working on to seek your crowdfunding support for DNA testing to help solve these cold cases.
Upload your DNA profile to DNAsolves.com. It's easy, free, and confidential.
Then join Mind Over Murder as we help families find answers with Othram and DNAsolves.com. In these stressful times, everyone needs some time to chill out and relax. That's why we're excited to announce this week's sponsor, Boston Green Health.
Boston Green Health is a local provider of CBD products that specializes in oils, topicals, gummies, and edibles. Boston Green Health's plant-based products can provide natural relief and rest for the mind, body, and soul.
As one of New England's premier hemp-based companies, they offer a variety of all-natural CBD products that use a blend of locally sourced hemp extract.
Visit bostongreenhealth.com for premium CBD oil, a delicious variety of CBD-infused gummies, luxurious handcrafted topicals, and a product line for pets.
Mind Over Murder listeners can receive 20% off any purchase by using show code MOM20.
Boston Green Health takes pride in being New England's most trusted CBD brand.
Visit bostongreenhealth.com and use show code MOM20 for 20% off any purchase. Do you like our show, Mind Over Murder, and want to create your own podcast?
Well then, let us tell you about Anchor.
First of all, it's free. And who doesn't love free, right?
I like free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
You can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before.
Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more platforms.
And you can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership.
I like the sound of that. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Right here, Anchor.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started on your own podcast.
You can tell them Kristin and Bill from Mind Over Murder sent you. Welcome back to Mind Over Murder.
Gemma, go ahead and give us a little bit more of a case update on what's happening with Sister Cathy's case.
Sure. Actually, because this is an open case, an open, active, but cold case, I am able to get very little. The police can't afford to show me anything or tell me anything. And I have offered to go sit in their offices and pull my eyeballs out if I ever tell anything. But let's say that I sat and looked at the files and was able to give them information or connect the dots that led to an answer, then there would be a mistrial, because that would not have been okay protocol for Gemma Hoskins to look at those files. So the information flows one way to the police. You guys know this. You've been through this. You can give them information, but they're not giving anything back. So what's happened is that I have been given enough information to know that there is some DNA processing going on. The number one question people ask me on social media is, why can't CC more? Why can't the DNA 1, 2, 3, ancestry, all that stuff be used? I don't know the answer to that. I have talked to her, CC Moore, and she told me that in order to do that, there has to be unknown DNA.
Correct.
Well, right now, I know that more than one body was exhumed. So that will mean something to your listeners. I'm not permitted to say who, because the families wish that to be private, because some of the older members of the families would be really disturbed to know that. So that's not my business. I can say that I believe that DNA has been collected from most of the people that you would consider suspects. I know it's been was collected from Edgar Davidson, Billy Schmidt, Ron Schmidt, Joseph Maskell. I don't know about Keough. I don't know if DNA has ever been collected from him. Trying to think of who else. So that's been done. Now, there was a cigarette butt on the crime scene, and the crime scene meaning the back seat of the car, not laying on the ground. And there are some photos in the keepers that people can find that picture. Now they're all going to look for it. There's a cigarette butt on the floor in the back seat. I think that was a red herring. I think that was left there on purpose. It could have been taken out of a trash can and placed there, because it did not match anybody. And Maskell's body was exhumed 2 years ago, and a full DNA profile was done just to see if it matched that cigarette. I don't think he was at the crime scene anyway, so I don't think it would have matched him. I don't know if he was a smoker or not, but anyway, so I know DNA has been collected. I also can say that there is DNA from Sister Cathy's clothing. And I'm very sorry if you're hearing weird sound in the background. It's construction and the street cleaner, so I can't do anything about that. It's kind of a high whining. Anyway, so yes, the detectives in charge did process Cathy's clothing using a new technology called MVAC, VAC.
Oh yeah, we know the MVAC people very well.
And we've seen that demonstrated at some of the conferences we've been to.
Right.
And it's my understanding that Detective Gary Childs, took the clothing and evidence bags out to Utah because that's where the vendor is.
Right.
And they wanted to do it out there. So he retired right after that. And that's been over 2 years. I don't know what stage they are with that. I know that it was very difficult. I've been reading a lot about DNA, which I think is kind of confusing, but it can take a very long time. And apparently with MVAC, the DNA is collected on like filters, almost like a dustbuster.
Correct.
And so my understanding is, let's say in order to get a good sample, you would need theoretically a teaspoon of DNA. Well, if you wait a year, technology will change and you might only need a quarter of a teaspoon to get a result.
And that is happening these days.
Right. So there is a purpose to waiting. And I didn't understand that, but now I do.
Well, and our friend Jared Bradley, who's the CEO of MVAC, has educated us and many of us about how MVAC works. And it really is amazing technology. They're able to extract up to 200 times more DNA information, which is incredibly helpful. And then at the same time, you've got this other curve that hopefully will be meeting in the middle here on Sister Cathy's case, which is less and less DNA is required. So hopefully with MVAC's help, this will provide all the DNA information that they would ever need.
Right. So that would be the answer to why it's taken so long. Now, I also understand from the officer that's in charge of this case that there is training going on for the Baltimore County Police Department like this year for something called Verigen. And that is also a process that is from a vendor out west. And I was able to talk to somebody that works with that company. And he said, I'm not sure about that because the software is not ready yet. So there's all these factors that have to work just right and to be in place for somebody to be trained and then for the lab to be set up. I think Maryland is going to have its own MVAC lab, and I believe the police want their own chemists to do all this stuff. So I'm not giving up hope. I kind of feel like they know who did it. In fact, I've done probably as much research as the cops have because I talk to people that say, well, the cops never talked to me. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. With what you just told me, they've never, like the hunter that found Sister Cathy, nobody ever talked to him after that day. And we sent his podcast to them this past year. He said he's willing to talk to them, and nobody responded. Go figure.
It kind of makes you think they're not taking the case seriously when they don't.
Well, I agree. And they probably are sick of me, and I don't really care. You know, I've been criticized and asked to back off, and
this is all very familiar territory for Kristin and me.
I know. I know.
No, we appreciate the fact that the fact that you're doing this. If you don't keep advocating squeaky wheels and all that sort of thing, the case will go away. These two cases will remain unsolved if you don't keep talking about them. That's the bottom line.
Well, I'm not going to, so I guess they're not going away.
Gemma, I know that you've had some challenges with social media, specifically since The Keepers aired. Is that something you're willing to go into and kind of talk to us about?
Yeah, I can. I never knew about trolls before. And there are trolls that are vicious. And for some reason, I don't know why, they don't like me, or they want to make problems where there are none. Now, it was hard for me to get used to. I am better at that. I'm really working hard to not have like that stuff affect me, but it hurts when people trash you and say you're making stuff up. Right now, what's happening, and this is because of a misunderstanding, and I'm just going to put it out there. I've never said this publicly, but a gentleman named Alan Horn worked with us. when the keepers came out, he asked me to post a request for volunteers. And I said, well, you can do that. And he said, yeah, but they know your name. They'll respond to you. So in my ego head, I said, oh, I'll use my 10 minutes of celebrity. So I put out a request, and I hope these people are listening to this, because I said, we need your help. So I got like 60 people. I said, what do I do now? He said, oh, turn their contact information over to me. I'll put them in teams. So unbeknownst to me, he puts them in teams, but he was also working with the suitor law firm who did the mediation for our survivors and didn't do a very good job. Mm-hmm. And they were looking to get information on other people who had been abused so that they could file a big conspiracy suit. So Alan signed these folks up and had them sign a non-disclosure agreement for the suitor law firm keepers research team. Mm-hmm. And somebody sent me a screenshot where he said, only tell Gemma enough to make her think she's in the loop. So,
wow.
What?
Yeah, this is true, folks. It's like a spike in my heart. And I'm sure he'll deny this, but I have the screenshot. Of course, I've said some mean things too. But anyway, so all these people were given a script, and some of them were paid by the law firm to make cold calls to anybody who had gone to any Catholic high schools in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and to say they were working with Gemma, and was that person ever abused, and did they want free therapy and legal advice. I knew nothing about this stuff.
Wow.
Nothing. All this was happening behind my back. And some of my friends were involved in it. They didn't trust me. They were like, well, if you let her know about it, she's going to be in charge. Well, you know what? I started this. Tom Nugent and Gemma started this. So give me a break, right? That's how I feel right now. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this went on for months. And then people got in touch with me and said, why are you having somebody call me and ask if I was abused? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So then some of the people that were on the team started calling me and saying, do you know about this? It's like, know about what? So right. Apparently there was an online Google document where they were supposed to put all their research, and I knew nothing about that. And they were getting no feedback from him or the attorney. And then all of a sudden, the document disappeared.
Oh, how convenient.
Uh-huh. So I ended up the bad guy, and I was attacked like mercilessly, till finally a couple of wonderful people said, Gemma's the stool pigeon here. Mm-hmm. This is the scapegoat.
Yeah.
And they're like my forever friends. I love those people. We're really good buddies now. So there's a whole huge group of people, and I know all your listeners are going to go look at this page. I don't care. It's called Cathy Cesnik. It's a page that's set up as if Cathy is talking from the grave. It's public, it's disgusting, and it's grotesque.
Oh, my God.
And who set this up?
The people that thought I double-crossed them. They thought this was my fault, that I took the information and ran with it, and that they were left behind, that it was my fault, and it's not. I've tried to reason with them. The other thing is that one of them is, this is the first time I've actually been able to talk about this publicly, so thank you. One of them is the daughter-in-law of James Scannell. James Scannell is the officer that I offered the crab cake to in the truck. Everybody knows that scene. We have found out since the Keepers aired, now he's died, that he was also a pedophile, and his family doesn't want to admit it. He has 5 sons. I think at least one is a cop, and they threatened to come and see me where I live. So that's been really disturbing. And that woman, I'm not going to say her name. She knows who she is. It's his daughter-in-law. She actually is friends with some of my Keough friends and believes that I'm the bad guy. So day after day, they post things making fun of me. They trash Cathy's family. They trash Jean, Teresa, Donna, all of us. And then sometimes they publish their own research.
Wow.
who circled the wagons around Maskell's sister, who I don't even know, and they accused me of attacking her. I don't even know the woman, but now they're all friends with her.
Right.
So I'm not going to try and figure these people out. Facebook does nothing about them.
No, Facebook is very weak when it comes to this kind of thing. They
have posted my pictures of, they have hacked my email account and posted private messages. I've had to redo all that. They're going to love hearing this because it's been so inconvenient. I've had to report them for cyberbullying to the Ocean City Police Department, who came to my home and started a folder. When I was threatened that they were going to come to Ocean City, now everybody knows where I live, but that's not a big secret. I had to hire a private investigator to get in touch with the daughter-in-law and tell her to back off. Of course, it didn't happen. He also had to talk to the Ocean City Police about keeping an eye on me because I live alone. And, you know, I mean, I'm not afraid, but I have people that will take care of me here, and we'll be here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But the private investigator is a 300-pound ex-homicide cop, and he would be here. I'm not kidding. All three of us could stand behind him. And he went to the boys' school next to Keough, and he said he would take care of me if I needed it. So I have that to back me up. But, yeah, it can be a bad place to be as outspoken as I am, but I think it's worth it. And to me, I'm honoring what Cathy did because I think she was outspoken. And I'm not asking to be murdered. I don't think that's going to happen. But people have been awful about this. So, yeah, Chris, that's part of what you didn't know. And I wish that page would shut down. They have like 6 members. And they all have multiple personalities. And the one that talks, I know it's ridiculous. The one that talks as if it's Cathy talking from the grave.
Oh, that's just gross.
That's grotesque.
It really is.
Childish, yeah. But you know everybody's going to go look at it, so they'll love that. I don't even address it anymore. And they don't. I can see everything they're writing. They have me blocked.
Right.
But I have a number of other accounts.
Of course.
So, I'm not stupid. I have a couple profiles too, and I can take a look at what's going on. But no, it's been very difficult, and I'm not going there with them. Michelle Obama is my hero. I'm going to go high.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been difficult having had that happen to me. Nobody's ever done it like on the street. People are wonderful to me here. I still get people had one lady say, "Is that the dog from The Keepers?"
Oh,
yeah, it is.
It is.
And I'm the owner.
Well,
I'm the owner.
It's funny. I mean, we'll go a little bit fanboy on you here. When we were at CrimeCon a couple of years ago, and I am a massive fan of yours, and then Kristin said she was a massive fan, and then we both ran into you independently. Because, we're not, Kristin and I, although people might think otherwise, we're not actually attached at the hip.
Right.
So
I know exactly. I remember exactly where I was standing when I began talking to you.
I remember then, later on we're comparing notes because, we divided and conquered, and we were both running around, trying to go to different events and that sort of thing. There's so much great information and so many people you want to hear speak and so on. But later on, we got back together and we're like, I met Gemma. We were both so excited.
Kristin and I made each other cry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because we're teachers. We're talking about teachers.
That's right.
And teachers that were important to us and just how valuable she is to her students. And I remember both of us were weeping. So, so I guess that means we have to be forever friends, right?
Well, Gemma, you said something that it resonated with me, and it still does. I was saying something to you, and I said, well, I'm just a teacher. And you said, no, there's nothing just about being a teacher. And it was like, dude.
It's true. Right. And actually, that's very important for both of you to hear. That we were so thrilled to meet you because we both so admire what you've done with Cathy and Joyce's case and your advocacy. And, you're pretty relentless. And that's very inspiring for me and Kristin and tens of thousands of other people, hundreds of thousands of people have watched you and now are going to be reading your new book. And I'm so thrilled that you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this update because I've shared with you two things I've not shared with anybody publicly, especially about the challenges that I have been dealing with. And people on my Facebook page know about it, but I don't want to keep pounding on that because it makes me look like a poor sport and a victim, and I'm not. I just want people to know it's not okay, and it's childish, and social media can be so helpful but so toxic.
Yeah.
Like I don't think people would say things to my face that they would say online. I know they wouldn't, right?
No, there's something uniquely twisted about social media in that regard.
Right.
It can be so powerful. And we co-administrate a Mind Over Murder Facebook page and, of course, the Colonial Parkway Murders Facebook page and Twitter and on and on and on. But we look at each other sometimes and say, did you see the drivel from so-and-so? And people will say exceptionally thoughtless things that you're right. I don't think they would say them to your face.
I look at their pages. These are nurses, teachers, lawyers. What is wrong with them? They don't have dissociative identity disorder. They're acting like idiots.
It's true, and very, very hurtful and disappointing. We're always shocked when people say incredibly insensitive things about the victims and their families. We're just floored.
I'm sure that's happened to you because of your sister, and I think that's so pathetic, and it's very hard to rise above that. We're in a society now where everything is online, not just because of COVID, but just because that's how technology is. But the whole world revolves around your phone and your internet, and people are not always nice. So that's why I am so appreciative of having friends like you two, because even if I don't see you, I know you're there, or I'm here. And I feel like I trust you and you're reliable and credible. And I think that's what I look for in people now. I try not to judge, but what people say is representative of what they're thinking. So it is what it is.
Well, it's funny, too. When we first set up our podcast, we had a lot of intention of traveling. For instance, we were going to go to Maryland and record episodes with you and so on. And everything with the pandemic has gotten so balled up that we haven't been able to do all of the things that we had hoped to do. So I hope that the conversation via the internet here can kind of fill in the gaps between now and the next time we see you.
Sure, I hope so. And when you finish this, when you get your edits done on this episode, if you want to send it to me, I can post it on all my Keepers pages.
Oh, absolutely.
And everybody will know about your podcast. So, yeah, it's a mutual admiration society, you guys.
We appreciate it.
Join us again next time as we continue our conversation with Gemma Hoskins of the Keepers and discuss her new book, Keeping On, next time on Mind Over Murder. Thanks for listening.
Mind Over Murder is a production of Absolute Zero and Another Dog Productions.
Our executive producers are Bill Thomas and Kristin Dilley.
Our logo art is by Pamela Arnois.
Our theme music is by Kevin MacLeod.
Mind Over Murder is distributed in partnership with Crawl Space Media.
You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
You can also follow our page on the Colonial Parkway Murders on Facebook.
And finally, you can follow Bill Thomas on Twitter at BillThomas56.
Thank you for listening to Mind Over Murder.